Hi there. Welcome to My Other's Keeper. I am so excited tonight. My friend Mary and her daughter Christina are here with me. And we're going to talk about what life was like for Christina growing up, what life was like for Mary raising a child with special needs. And I don't know if we'll get into this time or maybe another time. Mary, you may have to come back once or twice. I don't know. But also talking about what it may be like to raise a child with special needs, because Mary also has fibromyalgia, as we have previously discussed.
I'll come back as many times as I want, as you need me to.
Excellent. So we're going to start out by focusing on Christina, and then if we have time later on, we'll focus on the others. Now, just so there we go. So just disclaimer, we're here to love and learn. Please be respectful when you ask questions or comment. That's just a simple, basic, I don't think I have any moderators who are going to be able to take away sad or scary or rude or whatever comments, but you're not going to be, you're going to be able to do that?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. And the other one is, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for all alerts. I keep forgetting to say that at the beginning of a show. Please do. Less than half of the people who watch my videos are subscribed. So it'd be really great to be able to say, okay, these people are with me. So Mary and Christina, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too.
So am I.
So give us a little bit of a background on who you are, Christina.
So my name is Christina. I am 25 and I'm married. I am just a fun person. I love to cosplay. That is one of my main things that I love to do. And I love to write, and just be a normal 25-year-old girl. So that's really about me.
Okay, there's going to be a lot of old people on this channel. I'm going to warn you now, they don't know what cosplay is. I know because I have children your age. So
so basically, like, dressing up as a character from a movie or TV show and pretending to be them. It's one of the things that I will say, having autism, it feels like you have a backpack full of bricks, oftentimes just on your back. You have to, going out in public is exhausting, because for me, I have to mask all that time, and it can weigh you down. And when I can pretend to be somebody else, like a character that I admire or something, it takes the load off for a little bit, and I can be somebody else and not be me and take a break from being me. So that's basically what it is.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, you were talking about masking. What is masking?
So masking is basically hiding all the what's the word I'm looking for? All the things that come with being autistic. So in public, I have to keep reminding myself, look people in the eye when you talk. Don't get out of control because you're overwhelmed. Act normal. Stuff like that. And it can be very tiring, but it's something that I do without even noticing it half the time. But it's what I've had to do, because there's a lot of times I've been judged for being who I am, and masking. A lot of people will not notice and maybe not judge me as much.
Yeah, some people call it fake it till you make it, but when it's masking, it's a little deeper than that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, Mary, what's it like being the mother of this awful, terrible, evil child that you have? Sorry. When I say something absolutely ludicrous, please assume I'm joking. Not everybody gets it. So anyway.
I know you are.
Halos.
Pardon?
Yeah, you got halos.
Or horns in the halo.
All right.
It was wonderful, but it was a lot of challenge. You know, and people didn't understand. Christina was diagnosed at 5 wrongly. She was diagnosed with ADHD and onset bipolar disorder, which was wrong. Oftentimes those, especially girls, are misdiagnosed. It wasn't until we had a crisis when she was 11 and we had the right people in our home that said, within an hour, this child is not that. You have an autistic individual on your hand. And I'm like, whoa. And that just changed the directory of how we managed her and how the behavioral plan came into place. Because all that time, things that she was doing was not, she was trying to be defiant and not listen. She was getting overwhelmed, and then she didn't know how to handle it. So she would just explode. It would just all come out in really, really not so good ways. And we were just trying to deal with it and not understanding her computer's crashing. So it was exhausting, and it was wonderful. And it was also very lonely because people didn't understand her. So instead of coming beside me and saying to me, can I sit down and understand Christina? They just kind of peeled off. There's a movie, Christina knows it very well, The North Avenue Irregulars. It's an awesome old movie about this pastor who gets involved with, you know, trying to fight organized crime. And their church ladies are following this lead car, and the lead car realizes he has a tail. And, you know, they are on radios, and, you know, he said, peel off, and all the cars peel off. And then home plate says, you know, does anybody have them? No, we all peeled off as instructed. Well, that's kind of what happened. You know, everybody realized, oh, well, she has autism. We don't understand this. So let's just peel off and not give Mary the support. And then the kids, you know, didn't understand her. So nobody invited birthday parties and friends. And it was a lonely time and a difficult time for me as a parent.
I can imagine. Yeah. And were you a single parent at the time?
I was a single parent till 2007. And then, but I had my mom and dad's support, and that I lived with them, and I chose to live with them because that was best for Christina. And then in 2007, I met the man she has called dad for years, and will soon be official.
Oh,
so yes.
Adopt me on Father's Day of last year. They're finally getting.
That is so beautiful. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So, in the early days, and you may not remember much of this, Christina. I don't know how far back your memories go. Personally, no, I'm not kidding. My memories go back to when I was 2 or 3 years old.
Dang.
Okay. Yeah.
Memory.
Pardon?
I said it depends on the memory.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. But so what are some of your earliest memories that you have, Christina?
Of just in general?
Just in general.
I guess like most of my favorite memories are with my grandpa. Because when my biological father left when I was a baby, my grandpa took over the rights, and he did a lot of things with me, going to Indian Princesses, which was a group for dads and daughters. And just him going outside to play, to throw the softball or kick the soccer ball. I guess like just with my grandpa mostly, and all the stuff we did. I miss him dearly. And he was just an amazing man.
Yeah, that's I've heard your mom talk about him, and he sounds like he was somebody who was really not only there for you, but there for the two of you as a pair.
Yeah.
You know, rather than saying, no, you can't be the mom. but the two of you
Oh,
as a pair.
Yeah, I still had all my rights as a mom.
My-
And
Yeah.
I think Christina probably when she was I think when she was having her times where she was just so overwhelmed, I think that she really kind of blacked those memories out. Because oftentimes it would be like, well, how do you discipline a child after 3 hours of this? She doesn't remember what she did 3 hours ago that
Yeah.
started this whole thing. And I think when you were in the mix of it, I could be wrong, but I think when you were in the mix of it, all the stuff you went through when we were done, it was like, I don't remember anything.
Yeah. Because I don't remember half of the stuff I did. I do remember the fact that was physical, hitting, kicking. I remember that. But a lot of stuff I don't remember. But I'm very thankful for my grandparents, like my grandma and grandpa, or my
She's
grandma.
watching.
They came and helped my mom, and they helped me. I mean, my mom would be going to the hotel where she worked at, and if she was going to work, my grandma would be watching me. If both of them are going to work, my grandpa would be watching me, and it was just a team effort. And I'm super close to my grandma. I love her dearly. But my mom had an amazing support system, and she had help.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah. As a parent, you can't do it without help. I mean,
No, you
for
can't.
some parents,
And then
wasn't
and then you have the school system that just didn't understand. I mean, I remember very specific when Christina was in kindergarten or first grade, and we had a principal who thought it was my parenting. It's your parenting. You're doing something wrong. Da 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 da. And she was taken off one medication and put on another that really didn't do anything. And what we were facing at home was what was shown at school. And he literally came to me and said, I am so sorry. This is not your parenting. There's obviously something going on. And we need to change the medication back to something else. We found it. But he came with a sincere apology to me, like, I am so sorry. This wasn't your parenting.
wasn't my fourth
That's awesome.
grader too,
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Deborah? No,
We're not going to say her name.
Oh.
We're just going to leave it at that. But I was in a conference with the two teachers and a principal. Not one nice thing was said about Christina. Their eyes rolled the entire time. I made comments of what should be done. And then we took her to Dan Marino for testing. And they gave us a sheet of like 12 things that the school could do. And literally everything that I had stated on there was something Dan Marino's was saying. And I just took the thing, I made a copy, I handed it to the teacher and said, you need to know what autism looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
like,
so important. Understanding the illness is key to understanding the individual with it. Something that I've said before, if you take a look at my Mental Health Mondays, I talked about stigma. And one of the best ways to break down stigma is to use people first language. So Christina is not an autistic person. She's a person with autism.
Amen.
So she is a young woman who's married, who has accomplishments, who has people who love her, who has a job, who has a dog. I mean, there's so much more to her than the boring fact of autism.
I want to. Yeah, one of the things I want to do that I'm going to try to work on one day, I need to be a kennel tech for at least 6 months before I can start thinking about it. But I want to be a dog trainer and train eventually on my own business where I work especially with pit bulls.
Oh, nice.
I fostered a lot of them, and every single one of them just turned the corner with me. And I just have a real passion for them, so that's the one that's choice. Besides
Christina, this was the life changer for you.
Yes. Oh, Jordan, yeah.
That was the life changer.
I miss him dearly. He was my best friend.
Wow.
My childhood.
How old were you when you had him?
Oh, I don't remember how old I was.
You were 12 years. You just turned 13 because you were diagnosed with diabetes. You were 13.
It was
when
a little before that, yeah.
But the training started before that. But he came in the home.
For that, but I don't know. Like, going through stores was a total difference, because I had my best friend beside me, and he was always there for me, and he just, the first time I saw him, we just bonded. I mean, it was just, we were inseparable. The first time we met, and I can't thank him enough for what he did for me, because he helped me grow a lot. And he prepared the way, in a way, for me to foster and help a couple of other dogs.
My favorite pictures.
Me too.
I love that picture.
Either
That's good.
find their forever homes with me or find their forever homes with somebody else.
Right. So. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that is so cool. I hope that you are able to get your dream of being able to be a dog trainer and facilitator and, helping dogs. It's such a...
It's an expensive career choice to start. You have to get training to be a trainer. And that costs a lot of money, but we'll see when we get there. God is good. If he wants that for me, he's going to provide that for me. So
that's right.
That's why this happened. That's why that happened, because of Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were a beautiful bride.
I did look good in my dress.
Yes, you did. You did.
Yeah. Well, Mary, now let's take a look at, before the show we were talking, and something you had said is she was autistic from birth.
Yes.
What makes you say that?
Well, it was 2 days, and she was 2 days old. And we were in an environment that was just overstimulating. And we went into somebody's bedroom where it was dark and it was quiet. And I tried to nurse her. I tried to do all the things that mothers are supposed to do to help calm them down, and nothing helped. And it was in that quiet room where she finally calmed down and went to sleep. And as I look back at that, I can say she was autistic from day one, because when things would get overstimulating, she'd fall apart. Sleeping was really, really difficult. She slept best with me. Children on the autism spectrum scale often sleep better with a warm body. So we tried everything. That's why when Jordan came into play for her as a service animal, she slept so well, because she had that warm body finally. And it was like, okay, good night, Mom. And she'd go off to bed, and I go, this is what it's like. I mean, this is 13 years old, and you think by now they'd be able to sleep by themselves.
Then we look at home videos with one of my therapists, Meredith, and she even pointed out some stuff like of me as a toddler doing things that and someone with autism would do.
Yeah, they're doing like repetitive stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So, like, I think there's a video of me just getting out of the pool and water's dripping off of me, and I'm just bending down and staring at the water drip off of me. And I guess that's a stimulating thing or something, she said, I remember. But we had her look, and she could point out different stuff of, hey, this is a sign. This is a sign. So it was, she was amazing.
Well, she was awesome. She was a maid of honor at your wedding.
She was.
Wow.
Yeah, and now she's a family friend for life. She was just one of those people. But
absolutely.
She'd have the same thing. Her grandmother made wonderful pea soup, and she would sit there and have it for 3 weeks, and then we'd offer it to her, and she goes, I'm done. Let's move on to the next one. Their eating is very picky in sometimes what they want to eat. Like, she didn't like the crinkle carrot. She wanted the flat carrots because of the sensory issues, the way they felt in her mouth.
I made fusses at the store if they didn't have the regular carrots that weren't crinkled.
Yeah. She didn't like the texture of it. Yeah. So if things felt weird in her mouth, if she got wet clothes, she didn't like wet clothes.
I still hate that. If I'm doing the dishes and I get water on my shirt and it's soaking on me, I'm like, nope, I'm going to take this off. And just, take
This
it.
is why God invented aprons.
I'll even probably rip that off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no, I can't stand it. So that's one thing that definitely still bothers me is clothes being wet.
Okay. And something that I've heard happens frequently with toddlers, I guess, learning how to toddle, learning how to walk or walking as a young person, like as a small child. Did she walk on her toes?
No, she crawled
No?
differently. She crawled
Okay.
almost kind of putting this leg first normally, and then she would pick up this leg and push herself off that way. Which later on, when we were trying to teach her how to crawl, she couldn't crawl, which had an
Right.
effect on how because I guess when they crawl the correct way, it helps with the reading. So we would help her crawl. But she
Well,
wasn't crawling normally.
well, and as a little girl growing up, I hit all the milestones.
Yeah.
I was verbal. I had, besides like the little signs of like the going into the room and calming down, stuff like that, I was growing normally. So signs like that for me weren't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think I got diagnosed late, is just because I wasn't exhibiting some of those signs.
She was in first grade. Remember Mrs. Sparkles, first grade?
Oh yeah,
And we woke up and this kid lost it. And I'm like, what is going on? And the day before, her first grade teacher, Mrs. Corrigan, and I don't mind giving that out because she was awesome, she said, Mrs. Sparkles is going to be here tomorrow. Miss Corrigan is not. Well, she did not want to go to school. She was crying. She was having just an absolute meltdown. And I called the school and I said, you've got to get Miss Corrigan on the phone. And she ended up having to talk to Christina and say, you can't tell the other kids, but Mrs. Sparkle is going to be me. So I want to keep it a surprise. And she would have a magic door. She would let Christina in 15 minutes before class started so Christina could come in there and get adjusted and so forth and so on. And she had to explain to her, it's going to be me. But Christina didn't know that. And she would we spent 45 minutes wondering what is going on.
Well, and
she did not want to go to school.
And I will say, like, going to school for me was difficult. Because learning, it doesn't come easy to me, like math. I like doing simple math. I'll have to use a calculator. I'm just not good at that stuff. So learning was always kind of difficult for me, and I was slow at it, in ways. And some subjects I excelled at, but there was others, especially algebra too. I was lucky to even pass that. But it does help to have those teachers that take the extra mile for the individual, because like Mrs. Corrigan, Mrs. Medico was another great teacher. And those teachers, they really help.
The one that lets you put your foot so that she could tap on it. I mean, she must have had a bruised foot by the end because you were so nervous about the test.
I hated it.
And
yeah,
she'd sit there and the kids were getting annoyed by the tap and she put her foot underneath Christina's foot.
I know. And that's the thing, is I don't even remember tapping or doing I don't remember doing that at all. I must have blocked it out because I was so nervous or whatever, but I don't remember doing that at all. But I'm so thankful she did. And so those teachers that just take the extra time, especially Mr. Nelson, that was my 12th grade teacher. And granted, I was in a school that catered to my disabilities, but there was one day, it was my birthday, and my little poodle, Abby, she had just passed, and this was my first birthday without her. And I was just kind of sad and upset that day. And I remember him saying, I was telling him it was my birthday. And I remember him saying, well, you know what? We're going to make that day special. So on my birthday, brought in a cake, got a huge slice of cake. It was crazy. But he managed to do a game that was catered to me. It was like, he wrote my name on the board, and I had to give him special words that are special things that I loved. And the class had to guess what those words were and what those things were. And he just went out of his way to make my day special.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah, that was a favorite memory. And then when we were in
Mhm.
the hospital because of something, I remember Mr. Nelson came over and he was just giving me a nice talk and saying he's going to be okay. You
That
know,
was your service dog.
yeah,
Mm.
he was just giving me the nicest reassurance possible that everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Christina, what was the difference before and after Jordan for you?
Before, now it's kind of funny because when we're I just thought of a perfect explanation. Do you know how at the Dog Wizard where I'm working at, they teach that it's the dog. It's not supposed to be the dog against the world. It's supposed to be you and the dog, or you and then the dog protecting him from the world.
Mhm.
I kind of felt like before Jordan, I felt like I was just I was out there alone. I felt like one of those dogs that have come in so skittish and just so alone and just not knowing what to do and always hiding behind somebody because I to protect me from the world. When Jordan came, it was like I'm safe. This dog is going to be I felt like Jordan was going to protect me and keep me safe, and um he did for many years. And that, I guess, I was kind of like one of those dogs that's just come in skittish, but then afterwards I came out. My personality came out and I was just,
He was your bridge to the world.
yeah,
That's wonderful.
I
And
guess I
Now, I
another
have
thing,
understand a lot of those dogs.
and another thing you did was horseback riding.
Oh yes, horseback
oh,
riding,
Yes.
so much fun. I
okay.
I'd go on top of, I'd have like a hyperactive day, be so overwhelmed, and then I'd go on top of one of the horses. Fred was especially my favorite. And I just, you could see my face just relax and me just totally calm down. And I was really good at
Mhm.
it too.
Oh, awesome. Now, did you have your own horses, or were they at a stable?
They were at a stable. It was this place for it was called Horses and Handicap at the time. I would love my own horse. That would be so nice. But I don't think the horse would do well in a garage, because that's all I have at the moment. Um, but I would love my own horse one day. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and whenever I get a chance to ride, I love to ride.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a place close to where we live, and it's called Equilibrium Stables, and it is a therapy stable, basically. So people with all sorts of disabilities. Um, a few weeks ago,
Fred.
oh, that's
My name is
wonderful.
Fred.
A few weeks ago, we talked with Melanie and Lauren has microcephalia, which means her head is smaller than what is typical on a person. Therefore, the brain hasn't developed as fully as it could have. So that's her disability. But being able to have a horse therapy, dog therapy, cat therapy, animals. God has just created this whole world of animals
Mhm.
that I'm going to get all spiritual here on you. Some people won't like that. I don't care. Um, but God created man to be with him, and he created animals to be with man.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I
And I
fully.
think I really think that that's something that not enough people realize as they're going through life and as they're looking at pets and looking at all of these things. Like, yeah, it's for you. You still have to take care of them. And when you're with a dog, dogs are pack animals.
Mhm.
You, as the needy person, I guess.
I would.
Sorry?
I'd call it pack leader or alpha.
Yes, exactly. So are you still alpha?
With Mocha, um, so my landlord and uh, me and my husband were going to be moving soon, so our new
Mhm.
landlord won't even allow dogs. And my landlord right now won't allow pit bulls. And unfortunately, Mocha is part of the pit bull breed. She's a Staffy. But when I was with her, I was the alpha. She looked to
You had
me.
to be.
I had to be because
Yeah.
Especially with those dogs, if you're not grounded and you don't make them the alpha, the pack, or yourself the pack leader, they will start. They will have to. They'll think in their minds, oh, I have to protect my owner. It's the world against me. And what you want to do is you want to make it you against the world to protect them. And if you don't do that discipline, especially like pit bulls, German shepherds, all those types of difficult breeds, you're going to come across a lot of problems, and you are not going to have them under control, which is what you need.
She attended through her riding school down in South Florida. She attended 2 equestrian state championships for the Special Olympics.
I have not
in Tampa, Florida,
placement.
and she did awesome. She really grew, but she attended both of those. She was in the newspaper several times.
Woo!
She went from the age of 5 years old. It was one of the best things I ever did.
Wow.
You know, Jordan was, mind you, a service dog for an autistic individual, whatever it is. If you're paying for it, it can be anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000. And we ended up, after I got a lot of backlash, you're getting what for, Christina? And I said, I don't care. I'm getting it because I feel that she needs it. And I'm just desperate at this point to do anything that's going to help her. Dogs are visual. And so is Christina. She does a lot of things, if you noticed, in pictures and ways she's describing stuff. And we raised the funds and we got her on TV. And it happened to be that they had to actually bump her story to the next day. And the perfect person was listening to it donated the whole amount. And it was a very wealthy person in Florida.
Wow.
Yep. And we raised $2,000 for another dog. And she met several dogs. And when she met Jordan, it was like, they were like, just, we're done. This is the connection that needs to be made.
Jordan was for another boy, autism, and they were teaching him not to lick. But I love when the dog just licks my face, licks my hand.
Yeah.
And it's the way they bond too. That's one way they bond, is by licking. And for another child, but once they saw me with Jordan, they were like, oh, we can't separate these two.
And you were doing something prior to that. You were going, I can't explain it. And I would just say, Christina, breathe. And she just wouldn't. She, and just excel and hold her breath. Well, when Jordan came in, it was probably like 3 months in, and we go, she's not doing that anymore. And one of the first questions I ask parents, especially those with an autistic individual, is, how is the sleep? Oh, it's terrible. Well, that's what it was for us. And I'll never forget it. It was about a year in for them to kind of get adjusted to each other. And I was sitting in bed and Jordan was on the bed, and there was a space between the headboard and my back. And Jordan came up and he came between us and he just plopped his 100-pound lovely self in between us. And then he waited a few minutes and he got up and he went behind my back. He sat down. He's like, Mama, I got your back. And that was like, okay. And she goes, Mom, you can leave. I'm fine now. And it was like, that was the change. It was like, I have your back. He could clue into me to say she's overwhelmed. And she'd be like, Mom, why isn't he going anywhere? Because you're overwhelmed and you need to calm down and go get some deep pressure. So that 100 pounds of weight would come on her. And I don't know what that feels like. And you would just see her face go, ah. It would just relax. Thanks, Mom.
I was going to say, I'm assuming this is your mom.
Yeah, that's my mom.
Wonderful. Hi, Kathy. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Time with Jordan that I remember, we were in St. Augustine and we were going to one of the popular restaurants. The Casa, no, the Columbia or something like that. And
it's the Columbia in St. Augustine.
Oh yeah, it was the Columbia. And there was a lot of people. And I'm just sitting there not realizing, well, I realized I'm overwhelmed, but I was masking, didn't really show it. And usually in public, for him to climb on top of my lap or sit in a sit in a chair was not really something that we allowed, unless I was on the floor. So, but I remember that this was the first time he did that. He just climbed up in my lap. No warning. I didn't give him a cue, anything. He just got up, climbed in my lap, and I guess he knew I was overwhelmed and needed that deep pressure. Um, we had to get him off me because it was not the time. But yeah, he
Yeah.
my lap, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And I didn't.
And that
and then he
that
could
trip
also.
was amazing.
Oh yeah, that trip was, because that was the first trip I was able to go on without being so overwhelmed. But he could. Jordan was never trained to to sniff out my blood sugar when I got diabetes, because I didn't have it at the time we were getting the
Right.
dog. But I remember there was one night. This was when we were about to move up to Ohio, and for some reason he was just. Or I woke up to my grandma coming in and saying Jordan has to go out or something. So I took him out and came back to bed. He was still moving around and doing whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is strange. I kind of don't feel good. Let me test my blood sugar. It was 70. Now that's not bad. It's not like a bad number. I'm not going to die or anything, but it was going to go down. And then once I tested, I ate something. He was fine. We went back to sleep and slept the whole night. But until I tested and got myself back on track, he was just restless.
Okay, in the United States and in Canada, blood sugar is measured on different scales, sort of like temperature, right? So,
Mhm.
what is typical in your blood range?
So, for
What is low safe?
I, I
80.
Okay, and
80.
what's high safe?
I Well, you're supposed to be, I think, between 90, like a regular human being, between 90 and 120.
Okay,
However, after you eat, your blood sugar will go up a little bit more.
yep.
I'd say anything maybe below 200. I could be wrong about that, but
150. It's
100.
150. That's where it's safe. When it starts climbing up past that, then
Yeah, then it's like, especially if you're non-diabetic and you go above 150, it's time to get something checked. For me, for that, I had a marker. I was tested for it a while back ago and said I had a marker, and it wasn't going to be an if, or if it wasn't going to be an if, it was going to be a when. And at 13 in 2013, that's when I got diabetes, and
Mm-hmm.
Jordan was with me the whole time. My mom was with me too the whole time. She stayed in the hospital, didn't leave my side. And then the last night, my dad came in and we had a sleepover, which was interesting.
yeah.
In a small
I
hospital bed and a
yeah.
hospital chair. But I
I
ended up in the room too because of Jordan.
Right.
I remember going to her school, which she didn't last very long there. Once the school she was previously at could not handle her needs, she went to a public school so we could get a scholarship for her to go someplace else. And she didn't last long there. And I'll never forget the first day that she went in. And the principal just looked at me. She was the vice principal, and we had this little meeting. And she just looked at me and she said, "I hear that Christina has an autism service dog." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I just want you to know all of our kids here that have ASD, none of them have service animals." I looked straight at her and I said, "Ma'am, I could care less whether one or all of them have it. If my daughter needed it and it is benefiting her and it is helping her, I don't care what all the other kids have."
Mm-hmm.
And like she was saying about St. Augustine, we literally we made so many transitions between, the train station in Deerfield to Palaca to Gainesville to St. Augustine we were making so many transitions, and I think we were gone for like almost 9 days. And I remember coming home thinking, this is the first vacation, she was like 13, that we've had as a family that I could look back going, this was wonderful. And we didn't have a meltdown because Jordan was there to help her transition. They don't transition well. So when she was in middle school and she was going from this class to this class to this class to this class, she didn't handle it well. I remember one of the teachers saying, I just want you to know I had to take a paper clip away from her. I said, and excuse me, because they stopped them at reading. Halfway through, they went to lunch, to a very noisy lunchroom. Then they went back to reading for the rest of it. Then they went to math at 1:00 in the afternoon.
Well, in math,
and
by then I'm exhausted and drained, and so if I'm going to do math, it's going to be early in the morning, and they didn't listen to that either.
And I just looked at her and I said, I'm going to put about 100 paper clips in her backpack. Don't ever take a paper clip away from her. And she goes, but she's not listening. I said, oh, she's listening. She's using that as her fidget toy to calm down.
Exactly. Yeah.
But she just couldn't understand why she had a paper clip. I said, she's trying to calm herself down.
In school, even in the school I went to for my needs, I had this teacher who read from the book word for word, and that was a bit like, okay. So while she was reading word for word, I would usually just grab my my blue binder and write. But I'd be listening and paying attention to everything they were saying, but my hands had to have something to do, otherwise I wouldn't listen as well. Even still,
that sounds a lot like. Sorry.
I was gonna say, even still, if like I'm watching a TV show or even in church, listening to the pastor, I've got to be writing what he's saying in the sermon, otherwise not listening as well.
That sounds a lot like ADHD. When I took my ADHD evaluation, it was extensive, and there was an autism section on it. So is ADHD also fairly high up in your list of alphabets, or where would you put yourself there?
So yeah, ADHD is definitely a big thing. Autism and ADHD and anxiety, I'd say, would be the biggest things. Then maybe diabetes isn't a disorder, but then depression would be below that. But there's times I'll get hyper, even at taking my medication, or especially.
You can tell.
Yeah, like right now I'm just playing with my hair because it's helping me keep on track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'll still have ADHD moments, even medication. But yeah, ADHD is pretty much up there. I remember in school I had to in third grade, my parents got me or gave my teacher a bottle of
Mountain Dew.
And
maybe 8 ounces.
When my focus would be, when my medicine would start to maybe wear off or become less effective, I'd come out of class, the teacher would give me a small cup of Mountain Dew, and it would keep me going through the end of school.
A little bit of caffeine.
A little bit
you down.
Caffeine helps. Caffeine does the opposite for me.
Exactly. And that's with ADHD. That's why the medication you go on for ADHD is a stimulant.
Well, autism and ADHD are very much similar. There's a lot of crossover between the two of them. You know, and I remember for her 9th grade going into 10th, the school she was at, which was Center Academy, it was wonderful. And they have them all over different places. And the principal came to me and she said, I have a question. Can she just stay where she's at? I really think it would be best that we not move her. She really connects with this teacher. They only did like transfers of class maybe a couple times a week. The teacher knows her. She's really doing really well. Can we just keep her in the same class? Do you have a problem with that? And I go, no, do what you need to do.
I even asked to stay in the same class or move to Mr. Nelson's class because the teacher in the 10th grade class was kind of scary. That's another thing of having autism. So with especially guys, my husband will be talking loudly, and I'll be thinking, "You're yelling." My dad, growing up, I constantly would be like, "Stop yelling at me," and he wouldn't be yelling at me. He'd be speaking loudly, or he sound very aggressive, and he wouldn't be like that. But it was my perception, and this
Mm-hmm.
teacher in the 10th grade was very we I wasn't a trouble kid, so I would have been
Mm-hmm.
fine, but half the time I would have probably thought he was grumping at me or yelling at me or mad at me when he really
Mm-hmm.
was.
His voice
Yeah.
really, but his voice really was not. It was hard for you
It
to
was
hear.
rough.
Yeah.
And dad and even Jared, sometimes their voice they'll sound gruff really when they're not. And
Well,
that's
you
one.
had a dentist hygienist that you had the same problem with the voice, so it wasn't just men. And she had a very
Oh,
high pitched voice, and you had a problem with that. So sometimes the voices. I tell people when you go in the grocery store, and I'm sure Christina can attest to this. Pay attention to how many sounds are around you. The light bulbs, the refrigerators, the cash drawers, the wheels on the cart. They're hearing everything. It is
that's
Mm-hmm.
what
why we didn't take her to the store with, until we had Jordan, because it was like, this is way too overwhelming for her.
yeah,
She hears
Yeah.
everything.
going into Walmart is the worst. Because I hear the cash registers, people talking all at once, the
Just
freaking
overload.
yeah, the carts going, everything. And I hate going to Walmart. It's awful, except for at night when you work third shift. But uh, yeah, the Walmart still is overwhelming, and a lot of stores can be overwhelming, especially if it's. I hear everything at once, and it's hard to block it out. Even though I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
doing so, it's still hard to block it out.
Okay. We have 3 people watching. Does anybody have any questions or comments for anyone? Um, Feel free to join in on the chat. I'd be more than happy to visit with you, and I'm sure Mary and Christina would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. If there is anything we haven't yet covered, I think that would be
I think
important.
I think
there there's so much to unpack because
Mm-hmm.
there's so many misinformation. And there
Mm-hmm.
are children and there are grown-ups that are not as high functioning as Christina
Mm-hmm.
is, and they do need ongoing care for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
For me, without behavioral therapy, I don't know if she'd be where she is. I think we need to throw as many services as we can to give them the best shot. But I know for me, it was like in the mix of it, there's no light at the end of this tunnel. I was
Mm-hmm.
just exhausted and tired. And I encourage every parent that has, especially ones that tend to elope, which means that they'll find them walking out of the house. Service dogs can actually become finders.
Mm-hmm.
A very, some children, not all, and Christina didn't have that, is they are gravitated, especially autistic individuals, to large bodies of water, which can be dangerous. So
Very.
in stores, they will take the child and actually tether them to the dog and actually, train the dog to almost be like, knowing their scent so they can track them if they walk out of the house. So those are all things
Mm-hmm.
to think of. There are children that will never be where Christina is. And my heart
Mm-hmm.
goes out to every one of those parents because they're ongoing taking care of them.
Oh
Well, and
yeah.
also I recommend that if you have a child, um, especially if they're on the higher spectrum of it, don't underestimate them, because
Amen.
my mom, when I was a kid, I was worse. I was horrible. Just I, you wouldn't recognize me. But you see me as a kid, and I bet in her mind she's thinking, this kid's just going to not grow up to be, she not that, but like a lot of these things, she's not going to be as independent as I hope she would be. stuff like that. But don't underestimate, because as I grew up and as I got help and stuff, I learned a lot, and now I'm driving, which I never thought I would. I'm working. Granted, there's dogs at my work, so it's not that bad. But going to work not every single day, but whenever I go into work, the days I have, I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm married. I'm accomplishing a lot of stuff that probably as a kid nobody would ever thought, hey, she's gonna do this. I want to be a mom one day, and want to be a dog trainer. I want to be an author. That's another thing I want to be. I would love to write. So don't underestimate us, because we will surprise you.
Absolutely.
Well,
so what do you want to write?
I want to write a fan fiction, or not fan fiction. Well, I write fan fiction, which is it's stories about movies, which I can't publish because that would be copyright. But I want to write fiction, especially like romance fiction. I hate reading and watching romance, but I love writing it and having two characters fall in love for whatever reason. But I want to for young adults, teens, older teens. I actually
So you want to write and then have your mom edit so you don't have to read it. Does that sound right?
Probably me, mom would be the one to edit it.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, my grandma would be the one to edit it, because my mom, she does a lot of amazing things, but there's two things she cannot.
I have a learning disability myself, so
okay.
Writing is hard for her, so editing is not her strong suit, and singing. I got the singing gene. She's a wonderful person. I love her dearly, but she cannot carry a note. But she's amazing. I actually have a book that I was writing, and I need to pick it up again, but it's a pirate book. And I really need to get that going, because I really wanted to get that published.
Well,
that sounds fun.
Don't underestimate us.
I mean, look at Temple Grandin. Look at what she has accomplished as an autistic individual. And I watched her movie by myself. I watched it with Christina and had her point out things. And then I watched it with her, with Temple, going over the entire movie and how certain things throughout it. And, she's just an amazing, a lot of wonderful resources in her, and how all these different brains, and how we need to, use them all in everything. I've always said, Christina, you're my hero, because she had to get up and she had to keep going and do it and fight against the world. And I was the mama bear, she'll tell you, that fought every step of the way. And, I love my mom, but she thought, Mary's never going to raise $15,000 for this dog. And she said later, I never should have questioned it. She did it because I was bound and determined. And I said one of the best days was Christina was born. She was born on her due date. She had a little clock in there to tell me exactly when she was going to come in this world. 13 hours from start to finish. And then one of the wonderful days is when I married your dad. And then when we got Jordan, and I said one of the hardest days was when Jordan left this world. And that was September 20th of 2019. And it was 12:30 at night. And we got in the car. She had her leash and the collar. And I said, now, Christina, I'll sit in the back seat. Come over here and let Mom hug you. She goes, Mom, don't touch me. Do you know how hard that is for a mom? She's just lost her best friend. And the thing that was her companion. And service dogs are all pets are special, but when you have a service animal, it's there constantly throughout your life. And I can't comfort her. But if there had been a dog there, oh boy, she'd have been all over it. But I couldn't comfort her. And that was really hard.
It was hard because it was just my birthday. Because it's when I was, I want to say it was around 11:30 something at night. So it was still my birthday. And I even told my mom, please just keep him alive. Just keep him alive until 12 o'clock. I do not want him to die on my birthday. So they
guys shared the birthday.
Yeah. I just didn't even want him to die on my birthday, because how sucky would that be,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at 12:30 is when I finally was like, okay, just let him go. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the hardest day of my life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because that dog would go that dog was by my side 24/7.
Yep.
They'll except in school.
Yep.
But still, it's 24/7 by my side, going everywhere with me. He was my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And the last year of his life, he got
It,
diabetes, which was ironic. So Christina
well,
was having to give him insulin shots.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
it
he
was.
was a rescue, so they didn't know his birthday. And he came home to be with us on Friday, July 13th. And I said, Christina, you can't give him that birthday because that's originally what we're going to do. She said, I just want to share my birthday with him.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then after that, she went into a really hard depression. But it was probably about a week
Oh
after
yeah.
Yeah, I legit did.
Jordan passed away. And she just looked at me and she goes, Mama, you have got to find me some way to have a dog.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law posted about this dog that needed a foster named Buddy. And we went and offered to foster this dog for 9 months. And, it was awesome because, she was able to love this dog for 9 months and have this dog have a family for the first time in its entire life. And then it had a freak accident towards the last little bit and passed away. But he passed away with a forever family. But that dog, I think, was just a life-saving thing for you during a very, very difficult
But
time.
yeah, because after Jordan passed away, especially during the summer when COVID hit and everything was closed, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what to do with myself. I'm like, this is never going to end. I had stuff going on that I was going to do. I was going to be in a play. I was going to be how to drive and stuff like that, and everything went down the toilet. And then it's like, my best friend, didn't pass away that long ago. It's like, what do I do? I'm all alone. And I was also having issues with a couple of people online that I do have a mom that loves me um very, very much, and I appreciate her so much, because there was like the depression got really bad to the point where I I was like, I remember constantly thinking, I want to be with Jordan. I want to be with Jordan because I felt like I was so alone. And even my mom, if it wasn't for a couple of best friends on the internet, one of them came to my wedding because they knew something was wrong. My mom came down, and I don't mind saying this because it was a hard time for me. I don't mind sharing this, but like, mom came down and found a bottle of my sleeping pills in my hand. I was contemplating because I just felt so alone, and she came and take the pills away from me. And after that, it was that's when I started to be like, okay, that was actually a really close call. What happens if I would have done that? Um, but my mom came and took the bottle away, and thank God she did, because then I got drunk. And it was kind of crazy because when I met my husband, obviously I told him all about what happened with Jordan. And when he proposed to me, he didn't want to do it on my birthday. I was kind of expecting it on my birthday though, because like, well, what other day would there be? But he chose the 20th, which is the day that Jordan passed away, so that day wouldn't have been so hard for me. So instead of Jordan passing away on that day, I got engaged to my best friend in the entire world on that day.
A very wise young man, essentially. Like, just wow.
He did
Good
that.
head on his shoulders.
Yeah. I have a really amazing son-in-law, and I'm very blessed.
Yeah,
How long have you been married?
So we just had our year anniversary last year, first year. So we've been married almost a year and a little bit.
About a year
We're
and
going to
6
have
months
our
almost.
year in August of this year.
That's a year and 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't been married too long, but we're over the first year, which from what I've heard, it's gonna last.
It's all downhill from now, kid. It's all downhill. And let me just encourage everybody. You've got friends, if you've got family, whether they have a special needs child or not, go and find out what you can do to sit beside them. I just remember thinking, I would love to have a friend that's going to come sit on the couch with me, because I was tired and nobody understood. I mean, I go to work, I'd work all day. My husband was disabled. I come home, I was trying to rest a little bit, fixing dinner, getting her ready for bed. I the weekends I would just totally crash. And all I wanted was a friend. And I'm so grateful for all the friends and people on the lifeboat that I'm going, you know what, I got friends now. And and then the parents were just sometimes as difficult as the kids, because the kids knew that there was something wrong, and the parents weren't stepping in to say, Christina's just amazing, let's come beside and understand her and love her. So there were not times that she was invited to birthdays. If a friend called me up and said, listen, I'm taking my gang to Chuck E. Cheese, I would say, have fun, because I'm not going. We took her once. Yeah. We got out of Chuck E. Cheese. This was before Jordan. I put my hand on her shoulder and she goes, Mama, don't touch me. Because she was so overstimulated and so overwhelmed. She couldn't handle the touch of me. And then I got criticized by people that want to say, oh, your daughter's still sleeping with you. So, you're still sleeping in the bed with your daughter. I'm like, listen, I am falling asleep at work. I've got to sleep, and this is how she has to sleep before Jordan. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And she was very sneaky when she was young. She would crawl, she put her in her bed, and then once we got the crib down, she'd come in my room, and I'd going, wait a minute, there's a kid next to me. She'd come in my bed and sleep. I mean, we tried everything to get her, but it was just she slept as long as she was by somebody. Yeah. And then once she had Jordan, it was like, okay, I'm fine, Mom, you can go.
Well, on note with like being a friendship too, don't like for people out there too who are who have autism, don't judge or bully them, and they need friends just as much as anybody else. Don't discount them because they're different. Be their friend. Invite them to parties. Invite them to go places. Because I bet a lot of them are so lonely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That they don't have anybody. And don't just push them away. Because they need those friendships. They're humans. We're humans. We need human companionship, and you can't just push them away just because of what they have. There was something else I was going to say about something. Oh, yes. Sorry.
Go ahead.
With the sleeping, I will say, my husband, he works third shift. So I only get him 2 nights on the weekend, but sleeping with him. So during the week and on Sunday, I have to sleep by myself. And I don't have a dog with me right now. And so I sleep, I have to have the TV on so that there's light in the room, and I have to have pillows surrounding me. But it does get better. And I have learned now to sleep by myself without anybody. And that is a great accomplishment. So if it takes time, but you can do it. That's awesome. But I've had to learn to do that. But I still probably sleep better when my husband's with me. But I am able to sleep.
Well, and when you've met an autistic individual, you've met one. We had a going away party for us before we left South Florida to move up to Cincinnati, and I will never forget it. There was 5 autistic individuals in my home. All of them were different. All of them acted very differently. And there was a friend of mine who brought her 7-year-old, and she came in the house and she said, "Oh, we just went to the jumping place with the trampoline things." And I said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, on a Saturday? No, that would have never happened with Christina. We would have come
No.
to the party and gone home. We wouldn't have gone to the jumping place on a Saturday, let her jump around and then gone to a party and then gone home. It would have been a nightmare. And this little boy wasn't crazy about dogs. Now, if Christina had walked into the place and there was a dog, she'd have been all over it. Jordan knew something was wrong, and he wasn't trying to
Mm.
be come over and overtake this kid, but he just knew, and he wanted to comfort this child. And it took this little the boy an hour for him to come over and just tap him on the nose. And that was it. And then they left. And I was like, how different this little boy was to the fact that Christina would have spent the entire time at the party surrounded on top every place that the dog could have touched her.
If there's a dog
I mean,
somewhere, and if I'm going to
forget it.
somebody's house and there's a dog, I'm probably going to be with the dog.
Yeah. Because dogs are visual thinkers, and she relies on
Yeah.
visual too. And that's one thing Temple said, is that she thought for years everybody thought in pictures until she realizes that's not how everybody thinks.
No, like
Yeah.
I think my husband, he thinks in words. But for me, if you say a cowboy, for instance, I'm picturing the Old West cowboys with their holsters, their boots, their guns, a horse. Yeah, I picture that. I actually think of or see a cowboy in my head. But there's other people that see the word cowboy. And that's one thing too, is why I sucked, and I thank God I passed algebra 2. I barely passed. I skimmed by, but I love geometry. I was sitting next to my teacher who was doing a geometry problem with some other kids. And he was explaining how to do it. And they weren't getting it. But when he was explaining how to do it, I'm like, I was thinking in my head, that's the answer. And then he would say the correct answer, and I'm just like, that's the answer. I passed geometry with, oh, I love that.
But biology you struggled with. And he said,
Uh,
you know what? He
was
said, I don't want to push her to the point of getting her frustrated, but I want to push her. So half the year we're doing biology, and then the other half we're doing something else.
no,
I just want to push her.
no,
But I
Mom,
don't want to push her too far.
that was chemistry was the first.
Chemistry.
Yeah, chemistry was the first thing I took that year, and he wanted to push me to see what I could do. But then I remember throughout the as it was getting further in the book, I didn't understand any of it. I was just like going, what the heck is going on here? And so for the next part, he had me switch to marine biology, but he didn't want me to get so frustrated that I just shut down completely. But he wanted to push me. And Mr. Nelson was the best teacher. And also, I think he had ADD, because I mean, we go from solving math to talking about tattoos. Literally one.
I have 3.
Literally one day he'd be going, now this explaining this math problem, and he'd be like, so what kind of tattoo would you get for the next minute? And then he'd be back to the math problem. But that's what made him unique and one of the best teachers I ever had. And there's been a couple of times he's called me. He called me when Jordan passed away. I remember that. And he called me another time recently, I think when I first got married, to congratulate me, and just I wanted to tell him how amazing he was. So he kept up with me even after going to the school.
Well, there was only 88 kids in the school. And there is, I think it's the Guardian Scholarship in Florida that paid for most of it. And it was such an amazing thing to have.
I wish there were more of those schools around, because for people like me who had, I don't want to like put this the wrong way, but had a higher functioning in a disability, or just a anxiety or something like that wasn't that wasn't so stereotypical. Like you go into a public school and there's these kids that have a lower lower functioning way about them. And but that school, Center Academy, was so nice because I was surrounded by kids who still had disabilities but were like me, and who weren't different intellectually, I guess.
That's where you really had friends for the first time in your life.
Yes, and it was an amazing school, amazing people, and the teachers really got me.
The phrase that we normally use for somebody who has a different way of thinking, they're not disabled or whatever, we call it neurodivergent.
Okay.
So to diverge means to go a different direction. You're still going to get there, but you're going to go a different direction to get there.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Whereas neurotypical is the normal, the normies out there.
I'm like, I wasn't sure how to phrase this because I don't want to want to put down those who.
Well, that's the thing, is there's nothing to put down. It's just divergent. It's just different.
It's just each of us have different. We're all different.
Exactly.
How far we belong. And it's kind of like, what do I say? I was explaining this to Mimi, my grandma, in the car. I had a Sunday school group that was with people with disabilities, and that was a nice group. The one thing I remember is when Jordan passed away, we had a housewarming party, and it was also a surprise birthday party as well. And my mom surprised me, and she said, the people at the group, she's like, they're sleeping over tonight. And I remember thinking, I don't have to be alone. That's what I was thinking, especially after Jordan passed away. They were really there for me when I needed them. But I guess, like, for me, like, being in the group, I wanted, I not that they weren't good friends, but I wanted people my own age and friends who, like I had in Center Academy, who I can, were more on the intellectual level that I'm at. And so I moved from that church to Friendship Baptist, and that was the best church I went to because I had a college and career group, and I made two of my very best friends. One of them,
bridesmaids.
Yep, maid of honor and bridesmaid, and they accepted me for who I was. I tell you, I was scared. I mean, Mom, you remember when the first time Julie was going to hang out with me, I was like, she probably doesn't want to hang out with me.
I had to ask her.
Yeah.
I was the one who said, Julie, can you please just give her your number, please?
I was scared.
Because she won't ask you. And that's one thing that she struggled with, is asking for help. And, I said to her before she came on today, I said, do you realize, because she struggled with standing firm and standing strong in her autism, being proud of it and saying, you know what, I have it. Deal with it, people. Deal with the world. Come on strong. I know you are. I raised you. And I said, do you realize not only the light that you can be to all the parents out there, but the encouragement that you can be to everybody that is struggling with it? Don't hide it. Shine it bright, because it's who God made you to be. And I am so proud of her.
And I appreciate that, Mom. That means so much. I have a friend on Instagram who is from the Netherlands, and she has the same disability as me. And it's really nice because that's why we connect. We can understand, like, she'll send me posts, like memes or posts, and just relatable posts about growing up with autism. And I'll be like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. And she's the one who's teaching me that autism is a beautiful thing and it's a part of me, and I shouldn't have to hide it. And
I'm just going to highlight this post. Is every single one of us is like a different recipe, all different kinds of flavors, textures, timing, requirements, etc. Sometimes put together, well blended, we become such wonderful creatures. That is so beautiful. That is just so beautiful.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
That's a gorgeous image, isn't it?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Much like you, I think in pictures. That's my brain goes to this picture. And it's like, suddenly it's a beautiful cake.
A beautiful cake. It makes me hungry though, thinking about it.
Oh, I know.
That's, I think, the downside to thinking in pictures, especially when you're hungry. It's like,
Yes. Yeah. No, it's one of those things that it's either a blessing or a curse, and sometimes it's both. And apparently, right, it's angel food.
like Monk, it's a blessing and a curse.
That's right. I love that show. Oh, I love that show. Anyway, I actually got my daughter a T-shirt that says, "I might be wrong, but I don't think so."
Oh, no. That's cool.
Yes. Anyway, ladies, thank you for joining me tonight. This is a much larger topic. We could talk
Yes.
forever.
I don't mind. And I really like this. And
That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic.
if you
Yes.
ever
I told you.
talk about depression, diabetes,
Mhm.
like that, I wouldn't mind doing that too, because that also needs awareness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a friend of mine I had on very early on in the show. We talked about diabetes. That was one of our first shows that we had. And it was actually the first show we did was my friend Samara. We talked about diabetes. So you and she should be on together and
that would
do
be fun.
compare and contrast and bring it together. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think you guys would like each other.
I think that would be
Kim,
fun.
you should highlight that last comment.
Oops, sorry.
Samira just did it. The one from Samara too as well.
Oh, with Sam. Okay.
Yeah, Sam.
There you go.
I think
Yes.
Christina needs to realize you're shining light, darling. You are.
That's right.
And
this is the Samara I want you to be on with.
That would be so much fun. I'm totally up to doing that.
Oh, that'd be great. All right. So I would love to thank you, ladies, for coming tonight. Thank you very much for joining us in the chat. Sorry, I'm not a chat forward person, but I try to. Oh, Samara's in.
Yes.
But I do want to have more chat available. So I'm really grateful for everybody who showed up tonight.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I will talk to y'all later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.